During my first ever internship at Procter& Gamble, I delivered my first real corporate presentation. It was a campaign brief for an ad that we were going to run during the Olympics. And this was going to be a presentation in front of a full room of senior brand managers. No pressure, right? Of course, I wanted to look smart. I wanted my manager to be impressed. I wanted everyone to see how hard that I worked. So I walked into that room super confident. And I walked out of that room a different person. Because after 2 slides, my manager interrupted me with a sharp question. And after that meeting, she pulled me aside and said something that I will never forget. She was basically like, John, I can tell that you put a lot of effort into this, but honestly, that presentation was a waste of time for everyone in the room. Was that harsh? Yeah, probably. Was it true? Absolutely. My deck was not guiding anyone. It wasn't helping anyone to make a decision. It wasn't solving any problem. It was all about me, my work, my effort, my desire to look creative and smart. After that feedback, I remember just going home stunned. But after days of thinking, the insight finally clicked with me. A presentation is not for you. It's for the audience. Your job is to guide them where they need to go. And when you shift your mindset from a performer to a guide, your confidence changes instantly. You don't need to look smart. You have nothing to prove. You just need to focus on helping your audience. And here's how to do it. Based on years of presenting to governments and investors and executives, I developed a simple universal structure that you can use for any presentation in the Western workplace. I call it GPS, and it stands for Guide, Path, Support. And to show how it is universally applicable, I'll walk you through how to use it for 3 of the most common kinds of presentations. The first is to leadership, like senior audiences who need to make decisions fast. The second is large audiences, like at an all hands or a town hall, like a room full of people who don't care about what you have to say, at least not yet. And finally, presentations to teams, like your immediate team, stakeholders, collaborators, people who need clear insights from you. Let's talk about the guide. Every great presentation begins with one simple question. What is one thing I need my audience to remember? Not everything, not only 3 things, just one. Why? Because we're human. Our brains forget almost everything. In fact, research shows that people lose about 50% of new information within an hour and up to 90% within a week. The more you say, the less of it that they remember. So when I force myself to simplify, honestly, I panic, right? I'll say like, no, it's a lot more complicated than this. No, it's a lot more nuanced. But it actually isn't. The mark of a truly talented communicator is the ability to make complex topics sound simple. Most people try to do the opposite, and that's why people tune them out. So when you build your presentation, start with your one sentence. Write it down and don't move on until you have it. Let's say you're preparing for a leadership presentation. For the guide, say the decision first. No context, no warm-up. For example, you would start with saying, I recommend launching in Q2. Bottom line, executives want bluff. They want bottom line up front. That's what it stands for. Because bluff makes it easy for them to decide. I always start with an executive summary slide for this reason when I'm presenting to leaders, because the goal of this slide is super simple. If an executive has to leave the meeting right after I've presented the slide, at least they will know what needs to be done. And multiple times in my career, executives or leaders have actually had to leave after the first slide, or they haven't even attended the meeting, and I sent that one slide to them. What if you're presenting in front of large audiences? Well, same principle for the guide. You want to start with a story that leads to your message. Why? Because this is a group of people who don't necessarily care about what you have to say yet, and you need to make them care. As humans, we can't help but pay attention when we detect that there is a story forming. It's neuroscience. For example, when my client was preparing for a deep dive, she had been launching this bank deposit insurance at her company, and she was going to present it to her all hands. We worked together, and we scrapped her original intro, which had all these technical details, and we replaced it with something simple. We basically said, when you deposit money at the bank, what do you expect above all? What's your non-negotiable? You want your money to be safe, right? Well, this safety is what we spent the last 6 months building. After that presentation, she told me that her story differentiated her from all the other presenters at that town hall, and even got congratulatory messages from people that she didn't even know at work. Third, let's talk about guide for team presentations. So let's say you're presenting to your team. You want to start with your key insight, the one thing that you want them to take away. It might be something like, hey team, sales are down 21% year over year, and we need to mobilize our marketing team to run more promotions. End of the day, people that you work with closely care most about the so what for them. And if you don't give them a reason to care early, then they will tune you out. All right, so that was the guide, the G part of GPS. Now let's talk about the P, the path. Your path is the short journey that takes the audience to your destination. And research shows that working memory can only hold 3 to 4 chunks of information at once. So use the rule of 3 to increase recall. Choose 3 reasons, 3 insights, 3 drivers, or 3 issues. For leadership presentations, you might say, there are 3 reasons that we recommend launching in Q2. We have revenue upside, supply readiness, and competitor timing. Or if you're presenting to a large audience, you might go with a problem, search, and solution method. Like, we saw X, we explored Y, and we achieved Z breakthrough. Or if you're presenting to a team, you might choose a story arc like, this is what we found, this is what it means, this is what we're proposing. So our analysis shows X, which implies Y, so we're recommending Z. Super simple, 3 milestones on your path to lead them simply to the next step. And the next step is the S, or the support. Your support section reinforces your path by providing evidence, proof, and supporting points. Some rules of thumb for your support slides: remember that less is more. A slide that forces people to read and listen at the same time is a broken slide, because our brains cannot do both things at once. So this is where Guy Kawasaki's famous 10-20-30 rule is so valuable. Basically, the rule is that you have 10 slides, 20 minutes, and your font size should be 30 points minimum. Of course, that's overgeneralized, right? Like, every presentation is different, but the core truth of Guy Kawasaki's 10-20-30 rule is that it emphasizes simplicity. On the same note, you should focus on one idea per slide. This helps you to stick to the concept of less is more. You don't want to force your audience to decide what to pay attention to. A good guide clears the way for whoever they're guiding, right? They provide a single, simple path to follow. Finally, bottom line up front. You've heard this already. Bottom line up front is critical for your slides too, when you're building support slides. In most cases, your slide title should be your main point. Of course, there are exceptions, right? But I've seen far too many slides that are titled Q4 Performance Analysis. What does that tell the person that's reading the slide? Nothing. Those slides could have been something like margin trending upward in Q4, driven by higher profit customer segments, right? Like, the title is the highest visibility part of the slide, the first thing your audience sees. So don't waste it. Lead with the bottom line. So just to summarize, I've talked about 3 key elements: the guide, the path, and the support, the GPS. Now, I want to touch briefly on presentation design, because that matters, right? Especially to some people. Do your slides have to look pretty? In my opinion, not at all. Now, I don't want the management consultants and agency account managers coming at me saying, John, what are you talking about? I understand that there are differences from industry to industry. And I'm not suggesting that you should go out of your way to make your slides look ugly. There is a basic level of design that can be achieved right out of the box with templates, and that shows the required respect for your audience. But design fundamentally is a vanity game, and I will die on this hill if I must. Of course, if you are a design snob and you can't bear to use the standard templates, then I will suggest a solution that I've used. It's called Gamma.app. Gamma.app is an AI deck building tool, and it works like magic. And I will say, they don't pay me to say this, okay? This is not a sponsorship. I just like the tool, and I've used it. This past July, as I do every single summer, I updated my painkiller interview course with the most up-to-date interview market knowledge, tactics, and AI tools. And in total, I spent over 100 hours on this update. I rolled it out to all of my clients for free. It's my way to continue to deliver value as a job search coach, to level myself up, and to produce the best content on the market. But I will tell you, the breakdown of time that I spent in this 100 hours, I spent around 99 hours on the content, the story, the tools, and I spent 1 hour on the slide design. And that's the way it should be. End of the day, if you've been struggling with presentations before, I want you to know that your ideas deserve a stage. Your voice deserves to be heard. Your career deserves the opportunities that great presentations can unlock. So the next time that someone asks you, can you present this? I hope you say yes. Not because you're fearless, but because now you finally feel prepared. All right, it is time for this week's Melon Break. And today's topic, a side of politics with your turkey. Most years, Americans sit down for Thanksgiving and then avoid talking about anything real, right? But this year, a trend has been sweeping throughout the nation. As of the time of recording, we've just passed Thanksgiving. So a lot of your coworkers might be chatting about this when they get back to work. And one thing they might be chatting about is how a lot of families are ditching these safe topics and bringing politics straight to the dinner table. Traditionally, this is a big no-no in the Western world. But things are changing. Some say that it's a sign of the dividing times that we're in, where both sides feel the need to convert the other side. Some people say that it's honest and healthy. Others say that it ruins the turkey. But the big idea is that modern politics are increasingly touching everyday life, and more young people feel that it's better to talk about it openly, even if it does get a little bit awkward. So this year, you may not personally be having these conversations because, based on my experience, we Chinese don't tend to be very politically eager, right? Especially if we're living outside of China. So many of your American coworkers, one thing you have to remember is that they grew up with this. It's something to remember this season, especially if it comes up at work this week. So here's how you can use it at work. With coworkers, you could say, I've been hearing about a trend of talking politics with family at the Thanksgiving table. Sounds super intense. Or if you want to be more professional, you're chatting about it with your boss, you could say, I've been reading about how political conversations are becoming more common at American holiday dinners, just like this past Thanksgiving. It seems that a conversation and perspective shift is happening in the newer generations. Day Up is written, produced, and hosted with love by me, Jonathan Lee. If you want to support high-quality, free podcasting for Chinese professionals, please like and review this podcast. It would mean so much to hear from you. That's all for today. 下次再见，职场小伙伴们。